Yes, just as President Donald Trump is the star of the Republican Party, Barack Obama brings kind of the same kind of star power to the Democratic Party. And the Democrats certainly used it today in a state where they have ambitions to potentially flip the state from Republican to Democrat on Election Day tomorrow. With Democrats John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock watching from backstage, former President Obama took note of the rare chance to flip 2 U.S. Senate seats from Republican to Democrat.
You've got the chance to flip 2 Senate seats? I said, well, I got to go.
Obama spoke in a parking lot outside the stadium formerly known as Turner Field. At an event, Democrats opted not to publicize much to hold down the size of the crowd. Yet the area in front of the stage filled up with Democratic insiders anxious to get close to the former president, who slammed Republican Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue.
To make sure their portfolios were protected instead of making sure you were protected, man, that's shady.
Much of the crowd stuck to the drive-in format of the event, waving signs, honking horns, and hoping the message might get out to folks on the fence about voting Tuesday. Even with the restrictions, Ossoff said it can only help him.
Having President Obama here is a huge boost, and his encouragement to get out and vote tomorrow is what everybody needs to hear.
The answer is not to stay home, it's to turn out like never before.
So we know that millions of people have already voted in Georgia, and it seems almost unthinkable that there could be people out there who are still trying to decide whether to even vote tomorrow. And Democrats and Republicans recognize that, but at the same time, if you've only got a few thousand people who are in that position, and there's only a few thousand votes that separate the winners and the losers after the election tomorrow, having this kind of effort on the day before the election is worth it to the party that can turn out a Donald Trump or a Barack Obama to do that. Back to you.
Thanks, Doug. We certainly saw small margins in some of the swing states last go around. Appreciate that.